What's going on, everyone? So I am extremely excited today because we have a brand new leader to talk about and a bunch of other cards. I just ended up doing these videos kind of sporadically depending on how many spoilers were actually released. And today we got like 8 cards plus a brand new leader to actually talk about. Usually the Tuesdays are pretty good to talk about all the weekend cards, and then Fridays you can talk about the new Thursday leader because they usually release new leaders Tuesday, Thursday. But anyways, we got a bunch of new cards, and the leader that I've been waiting for since the announcement of set 3, and I am very excited about it. So we're gonna dive into that, as well as talk about a bunch of other cards. Guys, before we get started, I just wanted to say a big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. I ended up playing a bunch of games yesterday and a bunch of games the day before with some random bunch of you, so that was really fun. Also, if you want to pick up any cards from Star Wars Unlimited, be sure to use my link in the description down below from TCG Player. It helps me out as well as helps you out. But let's not waste any more time and dive straight into it, guys. Captain Rex. I've been waiting for Captain Rex to be a leader since the announcement of set 3, and we finally have him. He's a rare leader in Command Heroism, and he has this really interesting action. Pay 2 resources, so a 2 resource action. It better be good, right? If a friendly unit attack this phase, create a clone trooper token. Wow. Okay. Interesting. Essentially 2 resources create a clone trooper token, because you're probably going to be attacking every phase, assuming you're building this leader kind of with that in mind. But he's a 5 to deploy leader. He's 2/6, and he has, when deployed, create a clone trooper token, and each other friendly trooper unit gets +0/+1. Love the art, by the way. Love Captain Rex, and I cannot wait for his showcase. But how good is he? So the first thing is his action. I am not 100% convinced by this ability. This is a really unique one, and we haven't seen someone that's just going to be generating tokens over the course of the game, just at a base level of being able to use an action. I don't think the attack this phase is going to be all that restrictive, especially if you're playing a Captain Rex deck with a Clone Trooper token synergy. I think you're going to be able to attack most often every single turn. The problem is that it costs 2 resources. The difference between 1 and 2 resources on an action is massive. If this is 1 resource, create a Clone Trooper token, I'd be saying, okay, Captain Rex, he looks like one of the better leaders from set 3. However, the fact that it costs 2 resources really limits the options you have for each turn. I actually don't think this action is amazing. It's okay, and I do like that you can kind of fill in these gaps in the curve, or if you have, let's say on turn 2, like you got a 1-drop to play, you can go ahead and use the action alongside it, assuming you played something on turn 1. Like, let's say you go turn 1, like Battlefield Marine, for example. I'm sure there's going to be other clone units that you can use, or clone synergy units. Turn 2, you attack with Battlefield Marine, you play a 1 resource, play like an R2, and then you play a Clone Trooper token. Okay, that's reasonable. But the fact that he flips a 5 resource 2/6, so pretty low stat line in terms of power and toughness, but you get a Clone Trooper token, and those trooper units, not just the tokens, get +0/+1, so they're 2/3 trooper tokens now, is a lot more interesting to me, because this gives you 2 bodies towards coordinate. So this seems like a very strong leader. Not only does he flip reasonably early on into the game, but he also goes ahead and creates a second body for you to basically immediately trigger coordinate, right? Any unit on the battlefield that has coordinate immediately gets activated when you flip Captain Rex, assuming they don't kill any of your units on the action afterwards. You're going to be able to have 2 bodies, which is really, really nice. So to me, the flip side of this, and if there's enough coordinate synergies, makes me a little bit more appealing, or makes Captain Rex a little bit more appealing. The fact that he is a command leader is a little bit unfortunate, because you can't run ECL with him as the leader unless you have like a double command deck, which I am leaning towards is going to be a little bit weaker, especially since you have to find all the cards within set 3 for the token synergies. To me, I'm going to put him in kind of like the average category. I haven't really seen a leader besides like Count Dooku, or maybe even General Grievous, or heck, even Ahsoka, that looks a little bit on the stronger side. Because most of them seem a little bit weaker compared to the ones we have already, and really relies on set 3 in of its entirety. But I am hopeful for Captain Rex, because this front side action ability is absolutely sweet, and I absolutely love the character. So really, really excited about that. Another note, we got a bunch of other cards to talk about, starting us off with Geonosis Patrol Fighter. And guys, I'm actually pretty excited about this one. It's a 5-resource space unit in Cunning. It's a 3/2. It's a Separatist vehicle fighter. It has Exploit 2, which means you can defeat up to 2 units to make it cost 2 less per unit you defeated. So let's say you have 2 battle trait tokens, you defeat them, it costs 1 resource. And it says you may return a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less to its owner's hand when you play this unit. So here is what I was thinking. Droid Escort. That is the card that I think of immediately. Let me see if I can pull it up here so you guys can kind of think about this card. So you play your Droid Escort on turn 2. Maybe play something on turn 1. Turn 2, you play Droid Escort. You get 2 bodies. Turn 3, guess what you can do? You can play Geonosis Patrol Fighter, return the Droid Escort by defeating the Droid Escort with the exploit cost of Geonosis Patrol Fighter, and then replay the Battle Droid Escort to set up for other exploit cards. So Battle Droid Escort, when played and when you defeat it, you create a Battle Droid token. So again, you're able to return this with the Geonosis Patrol Fighter, and you can replay on that turn because it's going to cost 1. So you can go turn 1, play something, turn 2, Battle Droid Escort, turn 3, Patrol Fighter plus another Battle Droid Escort. And mind you, this is going to not only leave you with net 1 Battle Droid token, you're going to get 1 Battle Droid token, the Geonosis Patrol Fighter, plus the Droid Escort, plus another Battle Droid token, which gives you 3 essentially 1/1s to sacrifice for any sort of exploit card you would play on the following turn, which with 5 resources where it starts to become a lot more interesting because you have a lot more options available to you with that exploit mechanic. So this to me seems like potentially an interesting synergy piece for the exploit deck. If you're playing this as a 3-resource 3/2 that you defeated one of those battle droid tokens and you're able to return something, I could see it being a little bit more valuable. To me though, the strength of this card is being able to play it for 1 resource using exclusively the exploit, getting something back, and then replaying it on that 4th resource turn seems a lot more interesting to me. I'm not sure this is going to be an absolutely amazing card, but it could be a nice value piece in the exploit decks. Next up, though, we got a really interesting ground unit, a 1-resource 3/1 in double aggression. It is Mr. Bones. On attack, if you have no cards in your hand, you may deal 3 damage to a ground unit. Okay, so kind of an interesting card here with Mr. Bones. This is something that realistically is just a 1-resource 3/1. Oh, come on, camera. Come back to me. Come back to me. Okay. It's just realistically a 1-resource 3/1. If you think about like double red Kylo, that's the deck where it's like you're not going to have many cards in your hand. Turn 1, you play Death Star Stormtrooper, Death Star Stormtrooper. Turn 2, you play, or maybe you go turn 1, Mr. Bones, Death Star Stormtrooper. Turn 2, you make 2 plays, maybe a 2-resource play and a 1-resource play. If you think about that, you go 4 cards down to 2 on turn 1. Go back up to 3, assuming you're resourcing 1 every turn, by the way. Then you play 2 more cards and you're down to 1 card in hand. You then can discard that card to Kylo Ren. And on turn 2, after you've played 2 more units and discarded a card, you then can get the on attack trigger with Mr. Bones. The likelihood of that happening is very rare. Mind you, this dies to basically everything and trades with basically everything, including battle droid tokens themselves. So I think these 3/1s here are going to get a lot weaker come set 3 if there's any sort of token prevalence, because it dies to any token in existence, and there's very rare chances that you're going to actually get this on attack trigger. So the droid tag could be relevant. I just don't see this card really performing all that well if there's any sort of tokens in the meta. If there's not, then it's just a 1-resource 3/1, and that could be relevant for any sort of double aggression deck. Although the decks that are running currently, like double red Sabine, the tags are pretty bad on Mr. Bones for that to be wanting a 3/1 here. The only deck I could really see is like a double red Kylo, or maybe like double red Grand Inquisitor or something of that note. But again, if you're playing this for 3 resources, then it's absolute garbage. So you really don't want to be doing that. And it's very rare that you're going to actually have no cards in your hand. Next card we got to talk about is Sword and Shield Maneuver. And this is one of the sweetest cards I've seen in terms of just flavor and what it's able to do. I just don't think it's very strong. It's a 2-cost event in Heroism. It's Jedi Republic tactic as the traits. By the way, very relevant, Republic trait and the Jedi trait. We've already seen some synergies with the Republic trait specifically, and so it's really important to have that on a card, so that's really cool. I'm not sure if the Jedi trait will matter in an event case yet. We will potentially have some sort of thing that works with that, but we'll have to wait and see. This just says give each friendly trooper unit raid 1 and each friendly Jedi unit Sentinel for this phase. So obviously your troopers are your swords, your Jedis are your shields. Now, if you think about kind of what deck this fits in, I think of, let me just pull up the card lists and pull up Shock T. That's the type of card that I'm thinking about when I think of this card. So we play Shock T, we're creating clone trooper tokens. Each of the tokens are getting +1/+0. She's a Jedi. You give Sentinel to Shock T. She kind of soaks up some damage, and then all your clone troopers get to attack. The problem with this is that a lot of the Jedis that you're wanting to play within your troopers, either they already have Sentinel or they are really squishy. So they're going to die very easily. And that's not going to be super relevant. And then the raid 1 is also not exactly extremely relevant. You need a pretty crazy setup for this to be valuable. If you think about what this does, it's 2 resources for raid 1 per trooper token or trooper unit. Let's say you have 3 clone trooper tokens or trooper units, and you're able to attack with every single one of those without them dying before the end of the phase, which again, very rare. You would have gotten the same value as a surprise strike. That's not even assuming, again, that's assuming your opponent doesn't have anything to interact with your troopers, or, maybe you have a bunch of Jedi to give Sentinel. That's a very big ask. Again, it's the same as a surprise strike, and it requires so much more setup. As soon as you have the 4th trooper that it gets to attack, then you've gotten more value than a surprise strike, which seems very rare for me. The Jedi units getting Sentinel, that's where it could potentially be good. Like, okay, I want to protect these trooper tokens. So by the nature of you giving Sentinel to a Jedi, you might have gotten in for like an additional 6 points of damage, because not only did you get raid 1 on those trooper tokens or trooper units, but you also just got to attack with them. Whereas otherwise, if your Jedi did not have Sentinel, you would not be able to attack with the troopers, because your opponent could have just killed the trooper tokens. But again, if we pull up the card list and type in Jedi, how many options do we really have right now? Of course, we are going to get more and more and more. Things like the new leaders, Ahsoka, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan already has Sentinel. Mace Windu comes down so late. I suppose Ahsoka, the fact that she is a 3/6 becoming a 5/6 could be relevant as a Sentinel, so maybe that's a spot for her. We have things like maybe Kiadi, who's got that big butt, or the card that I was most excited about is something like a Knight of the Republic. So you give Sentinel this, it's forced to take all the damage. Suddenly you have a 4/7 Sentinel, and all your other clone troopers can attack, and you're creating more clone troopers. But again, that's like pretty rare. Most of the other units are really wanting to attack and don't really care or have bad stats for Sentinel purposes. So I'm not a huge proponent for this card. I think it's going to be a little bit too hard to set up and a little bit on the weaker side of things. Next up, though, we got Clone Commander Cody. Clone Commander Cody, 5 resource ground unit in command. It's a 4/4 Republic clone trooper. It's got Overwhelm, Coordinate. Each other friendly unit gains +1/+1 and gains Overwhelm. This card looks sweet. If you think about what this card could do, just think about, let's say, playing Captain Rex and having Clone Commander Cody in your deck. Both of them flip on the same turn. You get your Captain Rex down. He immediately triggers Coordinates for your other units. And suddenly, your Captain Rex is now a 3/7 Overwhelm. And your Clone Trooper token's a 3/3 Overwhelm. And you get a 4/4 Overwhelm alongside Clone Commander Cody. That's pretty nice. That's pretty nice. The way I see this card is a way to really devastate your opponent's boards while also getting in damage, using Clone Commander Cody as sort of an event. And what I mean by that is setting up a nice board beforehand, dropping Clone Commander Cody, and then using all your units to take out your opponent's units while getting in damage. That seems pretty strong for me. We've seen General Dodonna be a pretty valuable piece, even in set 2, but mainly in set 1 for those rebel units. The fact that you just get +1/+1 is extremely powerful. And if you are playing a coordinate deck and well, you're looking to go wide and get value with pumping them, Clone Commander Cody seems like the card to both get value and have really a not restrictive way to get value, because you're going to be going wide to try to get value from the +1/+1 and overwhelm and coordinate in general. So I could see this unit getting a decent chunk of value. Again, the thing that I really see with this is, let's say you play some sort of leader that really works well with coordinate. I mentioned Captain Rex, but another one is like Ahsoka. Can you think about, or imagine like playing a bunch of Clone Trooper tokens or Clone Trooper units or whatever unit, curving out, deploying Clone Commander Cody the same turn that Ahsoka comes down. Ahsoka's a 5/6. She then becomes a 6/7 overwhelm. That's pretty good. If you have coordinate, which you will if you're trying to get Clone Commander Cody and Ahsoka to work. 6/7 overall on turn 4 as a 5 resource flip is kind of nuts, guys. I think Ahsoka could potentially be the de facto kind of aggro command aggression heroism, especially since she has access to ECL, all right? Whereas Captain Rex does not. Next up, we got a fine addition. This is a pretty sweet event, but I do not think it is very good. It is a 0-cost event in Vigilance Villainy. If an enemy unit was defeated this phase, play an upgrade from your hand or from any player's discard pile, ignoring its aspect penalty. Of course, for those of you that saw the General Grievous card, the one that's wanting lightsaber upgrades on your General Grievous, this is specifically working with him. You know, you go ahead and defeat an opponent's unit with a lightsaber. You are then able to play that lightsaber from your opponent's discard pile, and you don't have to pay the aspect penalties because you've collected their lightsaber. Pretty sweet, right? I don't really think that's going to be relevant in 99% of the cases. Not only do you have to defeat an enemy unit, so you could do so by using unit combat, but most of the time, if you're playing Vigilance Villainy, you're going to be doing that through events. You also just have to pay the cost of that upgrade. If this was play an upgrade for free, if an enemy unit was defeated from your hand or from any player's discard pile, I could see this being a really powerful combo piece. But it's not that, so you still have to pay the cost. I don't really see this card being all that great. It's just too much to set up and too specific. But if you're playing General Grievous, maybe you play a final edition just to grab people's lightsabers as a haha gotcha moment. But lastly, we have one more card to talk about, and this one's from Rebel Resource, guys. Check out his channel. It's absolutely amazing. He talks about all sorts of great stuff over there, so definitely recommend giving him a look. But the card that he exclusively revealed today was Enis Nest. 7 resource ground units in Cunning Heroism. It's a 5/7 underworld card with Saboteur, and when played or on attack, you may return an enemy non-leader unit with less power than this unit to its owner's hand. Interesting card. I don't know if it's all that powerful. If you think about kind of what Cunning Heroism, or well, specifically Heroism as well, but Cunning decks are trying to do in the meta right now, I'd say the most common one is going to be Double Yellow Han. Does this actually work as a powerful 7 resource play? Well, in Han, yes. And every other deck, probably not, because by the time you're deploying this, your opponents are probably going to be outsizing this unit's power, or at least having 5 power on their units to where it actually cannot bounce anything. And I'd rather have other 7 resource plays. But in Double Yellow Han, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because it can kind of lock your opponent out of the game. And this is something that can give you just complete control over the board. You go, okay, turn 4, I am putting a resource down, I am flipping Han, I am attacking with Han, I'm getting an extra resource, I'm playing Enis Nest, and I'm bouncing your weak unit. The only other thing, though, is by the time your opponent has 5 resources, they're probably putting stuff in that does actually just outsize Enis Nest. And mind you, it doesn't even have to outsize her. She just has to have, or they just have to have the same power as Enis Nest, so she can only bounce 4 power or less units. But I do think it can have a place in Double Yellow Han, and it could get some value there. The question is, are you going to be replacing your Han Solo units or something like that in place of Enis Nest? Probably not. Would I play it alongside it? Probably. That's what I would do. Right now, Double Yellow Han doesn't really have that many great 7 resource plays to play in the deck, and Han Solo unit is one of the only options you do have. So having Enis Nest there is great. You have another option as a 7 resource play. But I'm not convinced that this is going to be good for really any other Cunning Heroism deck. That being said, guys, that is all the cards we have for today. What do you think about Captain Rex and creating Clone Trooper tokens, guys? I am super excited about this card, even though I don't think it's like insane. I think it's kind of like an average leader. I am excited about the flip side for him. What about Geonosis Patrol Fighter? What about the exploit synergies? Is a 3-1 good enough in the format right now? Sword and shield maneuver. Can you actually benefit from the shielding aspect to also attack with the sword? I'm not sure. Clone Commander Cody, is coordinate actually showing up and potentially being a strong mechanic? I think so with Ahsoka. Ahsoka actually looks pretty good. A fine addition. Are you going to be building the General Grievous deck and collecting those lightsabers? Absolutely. And I will probably be putting a fine addition in the deck just for the flavor of it. And lastly, what do you think about Enis Nest? Are you going to be able to benefit from the bounce? I think so in Double Yellow Han, but maybe not any other deck. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all for the next one.